Hey everyone, welcome back to Can't Be True. I'm Tim, and today we're diving into something that's equal parts fascinating and spine-chilling. What's creepier than an abandoned building? One that's hiding a dark secret. And trust me, we've got 10 of them that'll make your skin crawl. From haunted hospitals to cursed castles, and even a place that's been trending in 2025 for all the wrong reasons, this list has it all. These buildings have been left to rot, but their stories, they're very much alive, so grab a blanket, maybe a flashlight, and let's get started. Oh, and before we dive in, I'd love to hear from you. What's the creepiest place you've ever visited? Drop it in the comments below. Alright, let's kick things off with number 10. We're starting with Bielitz Heilstätten Hospital in Germany, a place that's been abandoned for decades but still feels like it's holding on to the past. This massive complex was built in the late 1890s as a sanatorium for tuberculosis patients, a disease that was a death sentence back then. People would come here hoping for a cure, but many never left. Tuberculosis claimed countless lives, and the hospital's long, echoing halls were filled with the sounds of coughing and despair. The sprawling estate, with its 60 buildings, was designed to be a peaceful retreat surrounded by forests to help patients recover with fresh air. But peace was short-lived. During World War I, it transformed into a military hospital, treating soldiers with gruesome injuries from the front lines. Fun fact, a young Adolf Hitler was treated here in 1916 after getting injured in the Battle of the Somme. He had a leg wound and spent months recovering in one of these very rooms, writing letters to his comrades about the horrors of war. By the 1990s, the hospital was completely abandoned after the Soviet military, which had used it post-World War II, pulled out of Germany. That's when things got really weird. Urban explorers who ventured inside report seeing ghostly figures of soldiers and nurses wandering in the halls, as if they're still on duty. The surgical rooms are the creepiest. Rusted equipment, stained tables, and an eerie silence that makes you feel like you're being watched. Some say the spirits of those who died during surgery are still lingering, unable to move on. There's a particularly chilling story from 2018 when a group of explorers found a locked room in the basement. Inside, they discovered old medical records and a single blood-stained gurney that looked like it had been used recently, despite the hospital being empty for decades. Locals avoid the area, saying the air feels heavy with sorrow, and some claim to smell antiseptic in the air, even though no one's worked there in years. It's no wonder this place is a hotspot for paranormal investigators. Some have even captured what they claim are voices on recordings, whispering names of long-dead patients. In 2020, a German TV crew filmed a documentary here and caught a door slamming shut on its own. No wind, no explanation. The hospital's red brick facade is now covered in ivy, and broken windows let in the elements, but the past refuses to let go. If you're into creepy history, this place is a gold mine, but I wouldn't want to spend the night. Moving on to number 9, we've got the Ghost Factory in Japan, a place that's been making waves online in 2025. This textile factory in a rural town was abandoned in the 1980s after a devastating fire in 1983 that killed 12 workers. The official report says it was an accident. Faulty wiring sparked the blaze, but locals have always whispered about foul play. Some say the factory owner, struggling with debt, set the fire to collect insurance money, knowing workers were still inside on the night shift. The fire spread so quickly that many couldn't escape, and their screams were heard from miles as the building went up in flames. Fast forward to this year, and urban explorers started sharing viral footage of what they call moving shadows inside the factory. You can still see the rusted looms and scattered fabric rolls, all covered in cobwebs, frozen in time like a scene from a horror movie. The real chill comes from the reports of screams echoing through the empty halls at night, as if the workers are still trapped in their final moments. One explorer in 2025 claimed their camera captured a shadowy figure standing near a burned-out machine, but when they looked back, no one was there. The factory sits on the outskirts of a small town, and locals refuse to go near it, saying the ground itself feels cursed. Some have even reported seeing faint lights flickering in the windows at night, despite there being no electricity for decades. In 2019, a group of teenagers dared each other to spend the night inside. They fled after 2 hours, claiming they heard footsteps following them through the halls. The factory's exterior is a crumbling shell, with charred walls and a collapsed roof, but inside it's like time stopped. Old employee records, singed but readable, were found scattered on the floor, listing the names of those who died. The Japanese government has considered demolishing it, but protests from the victims' families have kept it standing as a grim memorial. This place gives me the chills just thinking about it. Would you dare step inside? At number 8, we're heading to Pavllia Island in Italy, often called the most haunted island in the world. This small island near Venice has a grim history that spans centuries. In the 1700s, it was a quarantine zone for plague victims. Over 100,000 people were sent here to die during the Black Death, their bodies burned in mass graves to stop the spread of the disease. The ground is said to be made up of 50% human ash, and early excavators found bones everywhere they dug, some still blackened from the fires. Later, in the 1920s, it became a mental asylum where patients were subjected to horrific experiments. Think lobotomies performed with crude tools like hammers and chisels, often without anesthesia. The island was abandoned in the 1960s after the asylum closed, but its dark energy remains. Visitors report hearing whispers and seeing shadowy figures darting between the crumbling buildings, especially near the old hospital wing. The bell tower, where a doctor supposedly jumped to his death after going mad, some say he was driven to it by the spirits of the plague victims, is said to be the most haunted spot. Locals claim the bell still rings on its own at night, a sound that carries across the water. The Italian government bans visitors now, but that hasn't stopped the stories from spreading. Fishermen avoid the island, saying they have seen ghostly lights on the water nearby, and some have found bones washing up on their boats. In 2014, an American documentary crew snuck onto the island and captured what they claim is a child's voice saying "help me" on their audio equipment. No children had been on the island in decades. The buildings are overgrown with vines, and the hospital's rusted beds and broken equipment are scattered across the floors. Pavlia's history is so dark that even the air feels heavy with despair. Some believe the island is a portal to the afterlife, a place where the dead can't rest. This place is pure nightmare fuel. I wouldn't set foot there for all the money in the world. Next up at number 7, we have Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, USA. This prison opened in 1829 and was known for its brutal solitary confinement system. Prisoners were kept in total isolation, which drove many to insanity. The idea was to force inmates to reflect on their crimes in silence, a Quaker-inspired method meant to lead to penitence, hence the name of penitentiary. But instead, it broke their minds. They weren't allowed to speak, see other prisoners, or even receive letters from family. Some inmates started hallucinating, seeing visions of demons on the walls, while others scratched at the stone until their fingers bled. You can still see the claw marks today. It closed in 1971, but its history lingers. Famous inmates like Al Capone were held here, and Capone himself claimed he was haunted by the ghost of James Clark, a man he had killed during the St. Valentine's Day massacre, hearing screams every night in his cell. Today, visitors report hearing disembodied voices, footsteps, and even seeing shadowy figures in the cells. One cell block, Block 12, is notorious for laughter echoing through it, even when no one's there. The prison's radial design with long, spoke-like hallways makes every sound carry, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Paranormal investigators have captured photos of what look like faces in the walls, and some visitors say they felt cold hands brush against them in the narrow corridors. In 2015, a tour guide reported seeing a shadowy figure in a guard tower. No one was scheduled to be up there. The cells are tiny, with arched ceilings and rusted iron doors, and some still have the original wooden benches where inmates sat in silence for years. Eastern State is now a historic site, but the energy here is anything but peaceful. It's a haunting reminder of a system that broke more than it fixed, and the suffering that happened here feels etched into the stone. I'd rather watch from a distance. Now for number 6, let's travel to Oridor-sur-Glane in France, a village frozen in time. In 1944, Nazi soldiers massacred 642 residents here, including women and children, as a brutal act of retaliation during World War II. The soldiers, part of the SS Das Reich division, were searching for a kidnapped officer, and decided to make an example of the village. They locked women and children in the church, set it on fire, and shot anyone who tried to escape through the windows. A woman named Marguerite Ruffin escaped by jumping from a stained glass window, though she was shot 5 times and played dead to survive. Men were rounded up and executed in barns, their bodies burned to cover the evidence. The village was never rebuilt. It was left as a memorial to the atrocities of war, on orders from Charles de Gaulle. Walking through it today, you'll see burned-out cars, shattered homes, and even a rusted bicycle still leaning against a wall, exactly as it was left that day. Visitors often report an overwhelming sense of sadness, like the air itself is grieving, and some claim to hear faint cries or see ghostly figures in the ruins, especially near the church, where the worst of the massacre happened. The church's walls are still blackened from the fire, and a melted bell lies on the floor, a grim reminder of the heat that day. In 2023, a visitor posted a photo online showing what looks like a shadowy figure standing in the church doorway. No one else was there at the time. The French government maintains the site, but they warn visitors to be respectful, as the pain of that day still feels raw. Old sewing machines, cooking pots, and children's toys are scattered among the ruins, a snapshot of the lives cut short. The village's silence is deafening, broken only by the wind whistling through the empty homes. It's a stark reminder of the horrors of war, and the energy here is so heavy you can feel it in your bones. At number 5, we've got Hashima Island in Japan, also known as Battleship Island because of its shape. This was a bustling coal mining community in the early 1900s, home to thousands of workers and their families. They lived in some of the first concrete high-rise apartments in Japan, packed in so tightly that the population density was higher than Tokyo's at the time. Over 5,000 people crammed onto a tiny island less than half a kilometer long. But by 1974, the coal ran out, and the island was abandoned overnight. People left behind toys, clothes, even food on the tables, as if they vanished in an instant. The concrete apartments, schools, and hospitals are now crumbling, overtaken by the sea, with waves crashing through broken windows and salt water eroding the foundations. In 2024, divers exploring the underwater tunnels found skeletal remains, believed to be workers who died in accidents. Some say they were forced to work in deadly conditions, with cave-ins and flooding common, and their bodies were never recovered. Locals say the island is haunted by those who perished in the mines, and the eerie silence is often broken by strange noises, like the clanging of invisible pickaxes, or the sound of waves echoing through the empty buildings. Urban explorers have captured photos of what look like faces in the fog, and some say they've heard children laughing near the abandoned school, even though no one's lived there in 50 years. In 2018, a Japanese film crew recorded what they claim is a voice saying, "Go away," in an empty stairwell. The island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site now, but its history is dark. Many workers were Korean forced laborers during World War II, and their stories of hardship add another layer of tragedy. The whole place looks like a post-apocalyptic movie set, except this is very real, and it's not a place I'd want to visit at night. Number 4 takes us to Willard Asylum in New York, USA. This psychiatric hospital opened in 1869 and housed over 50,000 patients during its history, many of whom never left. Back then, people could be committed for almost anything. Depression, epilepsy, even disobedience if a husband or father decided you were trouble. Once inside, patients were often forgotten, left to live out their days in crowded, underfunded wards where abuse and neglect were common. It closed in 1995, but when it was abandoned, something chilling was left behind. Thousands of suitcases belonging to patients stored in the attic. Some contained personal items like letters, photos, and even stranger things, teeth, dolls, and locks of hair. One suitcase had a child's drawing of a family with the words, "I miss them," scrawled in crayon, a heartbreaking glimpse into a patient's mind. These suitcases tell stories of people forgotten by the world, and many believe their spirits are still here. Visitors report hearing whispers and seeing shadowy figures near the attic where the suitcases were found. In 2013, a photographer documenting the asylum said her camera batteries drained instantly in the attic, and she heard a woman's voice say, "Leave," right behind her. But she was alone. The hospital's walls are peeling, the floors are littered with broken glass, and the air feels heavy with the weight of untold stories. The main building, with its grand Victorian architecture, looks imposing even in decay, and the surrounding grounds are overgrown with weeds. Some rooms still have rusted bed frames and restraint chairs, a grim reminder of the hospital's methods. In 2016, a group of urban explorers found a hidden ward in the basement filled with medical equipment and patient files dating back to the 1800s. Some files describe treatments like ice baths and electroshock therapy. Willard Asylum is a haunting look at how society once treated the mentally ill, and it's not a place you'd want to linger. Now, at number 3, we have Chateau Miranda in Belgium, a neo-Gothic castle that looks straight out of a fairy tale, except this fairy tale is a nightmare. Built in the 1860s by a wealthy family, the Liedekerk Beauforts, it was designed as a summer residence with towering spires and intricate stonework. After World War II, it was turned into an orphanage, housing children displaced by the conflict, many of whom had lost their parents in the war. It operated until 1991, when it was abandoned due to high maintenance costs. The family couldn't afford the upkeep, and the Belgian government refused to take it over. Rumors of abuse during its orphanage days have fueled its dark reputation. Former residents, now elderly, have shared stories of harsh punishments, like being locked in the basement for days without food, or being forced to stand in the cold for hours as discipline. The castle was demolished in 2017, despite protests from history buffs, but that hasn't stopped the stories. Locals report hearing children's laughter echoing through the woods where the castle once stood, as if the kids are still playing. Some even claim to see ghostly figures of children in their old-fashioned clothes running through the rubble, their faces pale and hollow. One urban explorer in 2016, just before the demolition, found a hidden room filled with old toys and a chalkboard with the words, "We're still here," written on it in what looked like a child's handwriting. The castle's stained glass windows were shattered, and ivy had crept through every crack, but the energy was oppressive. In 2015, a local farmer claimed he saw lights in the castle late at night, even though the electricity had been cut off for years. The demolition was supposed to end the hauntings, but many say it only made them worse, as if the spirits were angry their home was destroyed. The idea of a place so steeped in sorrow that its energy lingers even after it's gone, that's the kind of creepy that sticks with you. For number 2, we're heading to Pryot Hospital in Ukraine, a place forever tied to the Chernobyl disaster. When the nuclear reactor exploded in 1986, this hospital was the first to treat victims of radiation poisoning, firefighters, plant workers, and even children who had been playing outside when the fallout began. Doctors and nurses worked tirelessly, not knowing they were exposing themselves to deadly radiation. Many of them would later die from acute radiation syndrome. But soon after, the entire city of Pryot was evacuated, leaving the hospital frozen in time. Today, you can still see baby cribs in the maternity ward, scattered medical records, and rusted equipment, all covered in dust and decay. Radiation levels are still dangerously high, so visitors have to wear protective gear and carry Geiger counters, which click ominously the closer you get to the hospital. Some areas register over 500 microsieverts per hour, far above safe levels. Urban explorers who visited say they feel an overwhelming sense of dread, and some have captured photos of what looked like shadowy figures in the windows standing silently. In 2019, a group of explorers found a room with a pile of children's shoes, left behind in the chaos of the evacuation. Some were so small, they could only belong to toddlers, a heartbreaking reminder of the families torn apart. The hospital's walls are covered in faded Soviet posters, one reading "Health to the People," now peeling and ironic. The air smells of mold and decay, and broken glass crunches underfoot. In 2021, a Ukrainian filmmaker recorded what sounds like a faint moan coming from the basement. No one could explain it. The hospital was part of a city built for Chernobyl workers, a model Soviet town with schools, a cinema, and an amusement park that never opened, its Ferris wheel now a haunting symbol of the disaster. Pryot Hospital is a stark reminder of one of the worst nuclear disasters in history, and the tragedy that unfolded here is almost palpable. And finally, at number 1, we have North Brother Island in New York, USA. This island in the East River was a quarantine zone in the early 1900s, most famously home to Typhoid Mary Mallon, the first known asymptomatic carrier of typhoid fever. She infected at least 53 people while working as a cook for wealthy families, and authorities confined her here for over 20 years against her will. She always insisted she wasn't sick, even amidst people around her fell ill and died. The island later became a hospital for smallpox patients, another deadly disease that left its mark. Thousands were treated here, and many didn't survive. It was abandoned in the 1960s, and nature has taken over. Vines and trees growing through the buildings, swallowing them whole, with roots cracking the concrete. The creepiest part? The hospital's morgue drawers are still there, some with bones inside, likely from patients who died during the outbreaks and were never claimed. Urban explorers report hearing whispers and feeling cold spots near the morgue, and some have captured audio of what sounds like faint crying, as if the dead are still grieving. The island is off limits to the public, accessible only by special permit, but that only adds to its mystique. In 2022, a drone operator captured footage of what looks like a figure standing in a broken window. No one was supposed to be there, and the footage went viral. The island's main building, Riverside Hospital, is a decaying shell with peeling paint and rusted beds still in place. The surrounding grounds are a jungle, with collapsed structures hidden in the overgrowth. In the 1940s, the island briefly housed veterans, but they complained of hearing footsteps at night, and the program was shut down. North Brother Island isn't just abandoned. It feels like it's waiting for something. Or someone. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Wow, what a list. From the radioactive halls of Pryot to the bone-filled morgue of North Brother Island, these abandoned buildings are proof that some places never truly let go of their past. I don't know about you, but I'm not planning any urban exploring trips anytime soon. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments which building creeped you out the most, and if you've got a creepy place you think we should cover, I'm all ears. Next time, we're diving into the most bizarre time travel stories ever recorded. Trust me, you won't believe these. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.